Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Matt and AJ's podcasts.
Podcast.
AJ,
Yes,
yes.
it's great. It's great not having everyone watching live and messaging. No, I'm joking. Obviously, we'll still be doing the lives as well. But like we said, this is a nice opportunity to just talk and really sort of burrow into a question or two or a subject. Yeah, get the meat off of the bones and get down to the nitty gritty.
Yep. Right. So today we're going to be talking about hoarding or collecting. So let's chat about it after the little intro. Welcome back. So yeah, hoarding or collecting. What do we think?
This is a deep subject, Matt. Deep subject. This might take some time to unpack. On face value, what a simple question. Right, why do you collect? But when does collecting become hoarding? So I think we've got to talk about why we collect and at what point does that collecting become hoarding? Because I was asked this question as I was talking before this. I was asked this question by someone. They left a message and said, "Why do you collect?" And I was like, "Wow, that's a really profound question. That's a question that takes some getting into if I really want to get into it, because you're touching upon subjects like consumerism, materialism, neurobiology, psychoanalytic theory, and all this sort of stuff, and that's where my mind went when I was asked the question. But on the other hand, it's a question that can be answered as simple as, well, I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I enjoy collecting, but at what point does it become hoarding? Because they are both interlinked. One becomes the other. Hoarding, collecting, and hoarding. Sort of like the definition of hoarding is when a room or a space or a house is overtaken by something. Right. And now, if you think about me and my room upstairs, okay, I've got a designated room. I'm lucky enough to have that where I've got all my stuff. But when you look at that definition of hoarding and the fact that it overtakes a space, then you're stepping into that definition there upstairs. So we've got to unpack all this. So hope you've got a good couple of hours. And you thought it was going to be a simple one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my interpretation of hoarding, and obviously watch programs on it, is where you're going into a house and literally it's overrun with stuff. Essentially, a lot of rubbish that's built up over time. It's causing issues in the house. The people or person that's living in the house just can't function properly because there's just so much stuff everywhere. I think that's, for me, that's when that's hoarding. That's sort of the definition of when it's not collecting anymore. It's overtaken, and you can't function properly.
No, that's right. See, because collecting as a hobby can become hoarding, or another term is compulsive hoarding. And like I said, it is. The difference is that it covers a large amount of living area, but it can cause distress and impairment to the individual. And it's also it goes as deep as being a mental health disorder. And this is how deep
Absolutely,
this
yeah.
is going, because and it's hoarding's closely related to obsessive compulsive personality disorders. So is that something that see me for collecting? I don't know. My history of collecting. I've collected from a young age. Right. I mean, I remember I can go back as far as I'm a child, and I had like He-Man toys, Transformers, Ghostbusters. I mean, I remember in my bedroom I used to have a record player, and I remember setting up the Ghostbusters figures from the real Ghostbusters on it, using slime which would dry out, but using slime as a sort of display piece over it. So I was collecting. I had this collecting thing there from a young age. And when I was asked this question by someone, I actually filmed a video for it. But for whatever reason, I didn't load that video up. I'm not sure if it was one where I had abysmal sound quality or something went wrong with it, and I kept meaning to go back and video it again, but I never got round to it. So I'm going to incorporate it here into this. If I think it certainly falls into this category. So I started at a young age of collecting, and my collecting habits obviously moved into comic books. I was collecting VHS at a young age because I had a job. I had a job at the age of about 11, right? Even though I was going to school. After school, I was doing 7 days a week in a pet shop. So I was earning a little bit of money for myself. It was. I look at it as being a sort of paper round job, but it gave me a little bit of money. There was a comic shop near where, literally 200 meters away from the pet shop in which I worked. So I'd be over there and shuffling through the old long boxes that they used to have comics in, and that's how I sort of ended up getting all the back issues of Punisher and things like this. So I always had this instilled in me, right? But then I've asked myself, why do I have this instilled in me? Because I had to look at my upbringing. I had to all this into focus now, and this is where it becomes quite deep, because I weren't from a broken home or anything like that. I had my mum and dad. My mum passed away at a very young age, which obviously had an impact on me. It did. And I know that at that point, I kind of broke away and withdrew into myself for maybe 3 years. And I would use TV, films as an escape from the real world. Do you know what I mean? And so all this stuff comes into play. But, and I've had to ask myself, do I collect because there's something missing in my life? Is there a void in my life that I'm trying to fill? But the collecting started before the death of my mum. So it ain't that. And, as life has progressed, I've never been out of work. I've always worked. As you know, I'm on my second marriage now. I've got 3 children that are grown up and well developed in themselves and doing well for themselves. So where does it stem from? Where does collecting stem from? But for me, my collecting habits could far reach into the hoarding. I do believe. Because I do have an extensive amount of stuff, comic books going back 30 years. So, it's just they're hidden away. The majority of those are hidden in boxes, in a cupboard, big boxes, huge boxes, in a cupboard, massive cupboard that's in a stair on top of the upper stairs. You got 4, you got the bedrooms, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then at the end, you got a massive cupboard, and that cupboard opens up. And it's very deep, and there's probably about, Christ, and I'm not talking comic boxes either. I'm talking about big, fair size packing boxes full of comics that span from me being about 11, 12 years old. And I'm 47. That's how far back.
But as I say, from my point of view, if there's some organisation to that, though, you've got it, you've got it boxed up look at your room. You've got it organised. You've got, you know, various editions, steelbooks on certain shelves,
Hmm.
Marvel section. You know, your figures. So to me, I wouldn't consider that you're a hoarder. You're somebody who collects, and you know you've got some organisation to the room. You know where things are roughly. Um, you know, it's when people are, you know, you've got maybe piles and piles of books and piles of videos, and it's just all becoming sort of overgrown in your room, and you can't sort of see the wood for the trees kind of thing.
Good thing.
I think
Good
that's
thing.
when you can get into that sort of just, oh, let's just carry on adding to this almost
It's a
sort of confusion and mess, you know.
good thing you can't see behind the camera then. Because okay, so okay, do I hold? I don't know, or do I hold or do I collect to excess?
Well, I guess that's up to the individual to decide that, isn't it? Um, I think I think it becomes a problem when you start thinking, actually, this, you know, what I've got around me actually is kind of making me feel unhappy and, you know, not fulfilled in my own sort of collecting habits. When you start looking at stuff and it's like, oh God, you know, that's taking up so much room there, and um, you know, it almost sort of makes your mind sort of, you know, just adds to confusion in your head. I think that's when you really need to take a step back and think, no, hang on, let's get rid of some things. Let's get things organised. So it kind of organises your own mind.
Well, yeah, I
That's
mean,
how I look at it, anyway.
yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think that's where I'm at, me personally, because I'm, obviously I'm doing this culling of the collection.
Mm,
Um, Vids there. Now, it would be easy for me to go up there and just work through my Blu-rays in one go and just go bam, 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 all the shelves. I could do it like that. I'm not doing it like that because number one, it gives me a bit of content, and number two, it's done in small increments is far more manageable, and it feels like I'm making an impact, a positive impact over a span of time. Whereas if I went up there and done all the shelves in one go, now we're only talking Blu-ray shelves here, your standard sort of Amaray Blu-rays. I'm not spilling over into steel books or special editions or the superhero stuff or that. Just literally or the 4Ks, just literally the standard Blu-ray shelves. But doing it does give a sort of a feel of I don't know. It's a nice feeling to take this
yeah,
stuff away and say, do you know what? I'm not going to watch that. Or that's a double. Why have I still got it? Let's put them
yeah.
to one side and then get rid of them. Um, there's a nice feeling to it.
Nice relief, almost a
Yeah,
bit of relief that
yeah.
yeah, you kind of,
Yeah, it's a release. It feels I don't know. It feels good. But then if I'd done it all in one go, all I know what would happen is I'd do it, and then I'd probably have a couple of hundred Blu-rays sat there, and I'd be overwhelmed again because I'm looking at a pile of which I will get by the end of the day, and then I'll do what I do with them. But I look at this pile of stuff, and I think, bloody hell, there's a lot there. That's overwhelming. So
yeah,
small increments is working nice.
yeah,
But I am at a point where, yes, I've got to sort of, and I've said this before, that I've got to sort of cut back, most definitely. But it doesn't
yeah.
seem to be happening.
No,
Um, not, I feel that it is with the DVD, the film side of things. Although I'm still buying stuff, and I will be, as you know, CEX visits, pickups, collecting like that. I do a lot of blind buying, cheap, right? I don't generally blind buy expensive editions
no,
because I'd rather see the film first because I have been burnt before, especially back
yeah.
in the DVD days.
I've done that as well.
I'd import new films back then when I was collecting. Back then, I'd import. In America, this film came out. Wow, it ain't out over here yet, so let's import it. Let's import it. And then you watch it and you think that's crap. Yeah, I wasted my money on that one. Never watch that again. So I've been burnt doing that. But when I used to go into CEX and I'd buy a lot, I think, oh, I ain't seen that. It's only like £2. In my mind, £2 is cheaper than a VHS rental back in the day, or the equivalent of. So, and my psychology would be like, well, I'd pay £2 to rent a film that I haven't seen, or £3 to rent a film that I haven't seen, to hand it back. So what's the difference between me paying £3, £2, £3 for this film that I haven't seen, that I get to keep, even if it's crap? It might belongs to me. It's not being handed back. So there's that kind of a sort of, one thing's juxtaposed with the other, like that. But then I built up, and that's why I built up all this crap that films that I won't ever watch again. And there's still loads up there that I still haven't watched. And in most cases, if I haven't watched it, I won't cull it.
No.
Because I'd rather watch it first and then make that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense, that, to me. Whether and I think they're still sat there unwatched, but possibly.
I've seen other people's videos where they've had a film in their collection that they've not even watched, and they're almost sort of saying, why did I pick this up? It's sat on the shelf and I've just not watched it for X amount of years. But me as a viewer, I'm kind of thinking, well, now's your opportunity to watch it, make your decision. Okay, hour and a half, 2 hours of my time. Okay, is this film for me? Let's watch it, yes or no, and then get rid of it. And I'm very much like that. If it's a film that I'm not fussed about, then it won't stay in the collection. I'll think, no, take the time to watch it. Okay, is it something I'm likely to watch again? Yes, keep it in the collection. No, let's get rid of it. Because for me, I'm at the point where my living situation, I don't have a dedicated room like yourself. I would like to get to that point, and there are possibilities, but it would cost me money to be able to sort of convert this conservatory into a proper room. I would like to do it because it plays on my mind that I've got a lot of editions sort of certainly within my living room, a lot of stuff hidden behind curtains, that bothers me, because I've got piles of things, and I think I would like to be able to go to a shelf and see it all there nicely displayed. But I'm at a point where I can't really collect too much more, because otherwise I am going to get into that situation of just having piles and piles of things all over the place and not being able to move with things.
Yeah, so it comes across like you're hoarding.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. So you're saying, so you haven't got a dedicated space as of yet, which could change in the future.
Yeah.
So if you've got that dedicated space, do you think that would then open up your collecting? Would that make you sort of subconsciously start looking at more to buy? If that
possibly, yeah, because you then, like you say, you then opened up the room, available space. Whereas I'm at a point now where I'm thinking I've really got to be selective about what I'm picking up because of lack of space.
So the hoarding part for you, because I know that for a while you've said, "Oh, I've got to stop. I've got to cut back. I ain't got the space and all this." Because I've seen you saying that, and we've had conversations. And you're saying that this stuff starts building up in places, and then so you're not hoarding, but mentally, because you haven't got the space, you're thinking, your mind's telling you, because it's there, it's like clutter, it's in a living area, a joint living area, it feels like you're stepping into that territory of hoarding, but really you're not.
No.
it's dictated by the space that you've got available around you.
Yeah.
And how it's perceived when you see this stuff.
Mm. I mean, unfortunately, that I've been lucky with what I've done. I've kind of hidden stuff behind curtains and things, so it doesn't, you're not visibly seeing it. But I'm at that stage where I don't really have much more room to be able to do that. So I've really got to start looking at whether I need to keep various things or.
Now, what you need to start looking at is those spaces underneath the sinks.
Yeah.
In cupboards in the kitchen behind cutlery where it may never be seen.
Yeah.
By the missus.
Yeah. But no. But the trouble is that like you say, that does happen to people, and they do venture into these other areas of their living space and start. And I've seen it on programs where people literally, this space, this room is completely filled with stuff. Not talking film, just talking whatever it is that they've hoarded. And then it starts going into different areas, and then you start finding it in the kitchens, in the bathrooms, and that is when it becomes overwhelming for the person. But then they don't know how to get out of it.
Well, I mean, where I'm sat now is my front room, and obviously I've got 2 cabinets behind me filled with an array of statues that I own. Luckily, the missus don't mind that. She I mean, that's it, and she ain't got an issue with that. When it starts going everywhere else, then she would.
Well, I'm sure you would love to carry on collecting, those statues. And I know we've met up, and we've been to the Disney store, and there's been some, they've got some wonderful collectibles in there, or Forbidden Planet. But you've just said, I love this stuff, but I don't have the room myself now to continue this.
No, and cost as well is a big.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, a lot of these statues are here. These aren't plastic ones behind me. I mean, I don't know if you can see there's a Rocketeer right there. Right now, that Rocketeer, only 2 of them made its way into the UK at time of release. Very limited, but only 2 came into the UK, and obviously I got one of them. But we're talking probably close to 200 quid for that stuff. And a lot of these were obtained before I moved into the territory of 4K. Because moving from Blu-ray into 4K collecting, obviously I did see a vast increase in outgoings for film, for Blu-ray, for my film collecting, because you're looking at nearly double on a title. So where I could have bought, especially if they go a steelbook, if you think a steelbook, say 30 quid for a steelbook. I know they're about 35 quid now for standard steelbooks, which is crazy. But you say 30 quid, standard Blu-ray's 15. So you're doubling up on cost each time. So this kind of collecting sort of started going out the window, plus space as well. I've got a wealth of these statues upstairs that are still boxed, but I've just got nowhere to unbox and put them. And they weren't all that expensive, all of them. A lot of them I got cheap from eBay on second hand and things like that. But there's 1 or 2 that, and those sort of prices that you've seen in Disney Store, I have paid close to that for a few items that I really want. Rocketeer, like I said, being one of them. I think my missus paid. She bought that Alien for me, and that was probably over 100 quid.
Wow.
They're not plastic. They're not. Nothing in this cupboard here behind me is a plastic. Like the PVC statues that I get from Diamond Select, none of these are of that ilk. They're all of not ceramic, but they're all of some sort of a. If I drop it, I'll break it, basically.
Yeah. And I think as collectors, there are points where we have to kind of think, no, actually, you know what, I'm quite happy with what I've got here. You know, I don't have the room to carry on collecting these things. If there is something that I want in the collection, maybe I'm going to have to get rid of something else to replace it. You
A
know,
one
and
in
I
one,
think that goes one
a
in,
one
one
in
out.
one
Yeah,
out kind of policy, which I've considered.
yeah, and I think that's the same with film. I think you've got to kind of look at your collection. You know, and I know the last podcast that we did, we talked about double dipping, and again, you know, if you're limited on space, you've got to kind of start thinking, well, if I want to collect more films, then I'm going to have to let some things go. You know, maybe
Right.
the double editions of things, because you've got a fine amount of space in your house, depending on your circumstances and all the rest of it. You know, and yeah, I think as a collector, you've got to be disciplined, and you've got to um, work within what you've got. Whereas I think if you're stemming into the hoarding aspect, you're just collecting and carrying on, regardless of, you know, your living space, and then it becomes a problem because you just overrun with so many things that you don't know where to go, what to move, you know, where to move stuff or anything.
No, that's right. It's nice to have a space where you can step away from. But yeah, do I want to say? Okay, this is so derogatory, but I don't mean it that way. But a grown-up area.
Yeah, no, yeah, no,
Area,
I know what you mean.
like I said, this is my front
A
room,
different
so I have
area.
this stuff spill into here. But an area where you've stepped away from that. But that so what if, you know, circumstances where you and your partner, hypothetically, this is not, don't mean you and your wife, but you and your partner, you share the same interests.
Mm.
Your interests combine. So the fact that you could have this stuff in your living space isn't a problem to either of you because you both share an interest in it.
Mm.
You know, because that certainly occurs.
Absolutely, yeah.
And to, you know, and to an outsider, it might seem a bit odd, but to you, it doesn't. To you and the missus, it doesn't, because you've got a combined passion for this stuff.
But then there's the thing that if you both got the same interest, you're then actually vying for your own space within within that, because you're like, well, no, I want this, and no, I want that, you know. And
No, hold on a minute. No, you've got the kitchen. You've got the kitchen. I've
yeah,
got my room. So get
yeah,
down there, and there's all your stuff.
yeah, yeah.
That's your hobby room. You come with it. That's the thing. That's the funny thing, right? Is when you go and buy a new house or you look for a new house. And I've done this. I've done this when I bought my house with my first wife. The minute I went into this house, she's going in. She's looking at the kitchen space and all that sort of thing, and I'm going in. And the first thing I said to the person is, "Can I have a look up in your attic?"
Yeah,
And that's what I was interested in, because I knew that the attic I could make was big enough to make into a sort of man cave, and there was
yeah,
stairs, you know, that opened up and came down, and that was like a selling point for me, was, or a buying point was what could I do for myself in relation to my collecting in
yeah,
this.
absolutely, yeah.
Seriously, and that's the first thing I looked at.
Mm.
You know, I said, "Can I have a look up in your attic? See what it's like?"
Yeah. Well, that's what's important for you, you know. You know, sure, you know.
But yeah, no,
Yeah,
not how close to the schools or anything like that. It's what's there for me to
yeah,
collect, to
yeah.
store my stuff, to create a space.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you know, my situation, you know, to be able to convert this into a proper room, really, it would be for my benefit. I mean, I think it would add value to the property in the long run, but ultimately, you know, it would be for me to do this. And
that justification there, the value to the property, that's your justification to the wife. That's your justification there to the missus. It will add value to the property, love. Don't worry about that. Right. I've got to justify it somehow.
yeah.
I'm just trying to get you on board.
yeah. But I mean, in the meantime, it may just have to be, you know, I mean, you know, another bookcase maybe up in one of the. Well, my son doesn't live with us anymore. Certainly not at the moment. So there may be the possibility of replacing a fairly cheap bookcase with a bigger one. So that's in the interim, maybe before.
Let's hope he doesn't come back home.
Well, you never know.
Let's hope he's flown the coop and he sets up life elsewhere and doesn't need to ever come back.
You never know. But no, I mean, as I say, for me, I'm definitely at that point where I've either got to start boxing a few things up, just to create a little bit more space, and I am limiting now what I'm collecting going forward. I have to because of space.
So your collecting habits, your physical media collecting habits, right? They stem from the days of VHS. You've been through VHS. You've been through DVD. You've been into Blu-ray. You're into the territory of 4K. So you've stepped through all those eras of. So when did your so what about your psychology of collecting? When do you? I mean, as a kid, you know, was there toy lines or anything like that you liked, or were you collecting? Did you have a collecting passion for sticker books? You know, because there's all this sort of stuff that you could, as kids, collect. Where do you?
I think there were various things that I dabbled with throughout my childhood, like figures, Star Wars figures, sticker books, like you said. I did collect some comics for a period of time as well. Not many, obviously not to the degree of yourself, but haven't kept any of those. But yeah, I've sort of dabbled in areas. I mean, and again, there was a period. Again, I didn't collect a lot of VHS, and I've only kept some of the small amount of VHS editions that I did have. I did get rid of quite a few. But in terms of DVD collecting, I didn't collect many DVDs. Actually, in the last couple of years, that my DVD collection has grown significantly to what it was, and that's only really because of the charity shops. You know, there's such cheap pickups that I've got. You know, I mean, I found charity shop. I was getting them for 25 pence each, and some very nice limited editions. You know, that you spend £3 or £4 on eBay for.
So you've got. I mean, you've got some nice editions of stuff in your collection. You know, some of these like Film Arena, Wheats, things like that you've picked up over the years. You know, ones that, you know, I mean, you've got quite a few Marvel ones, things like that. You know, things that I look at and I think, wow, that's really nice. So where did that start? Where did that collecting start for you? Because obviously having a YouTube channel, but not only having a YouTube channel, but watching other people going out and buying and collecting things has and do I want to say it has an adverse impact on you, because it opens up this arena to you. You know, I mean, if it wasn't for YouTube and things like that, and watching channels and watching and having my own, I don't think I'd have ever really known about Blue Fans or Film Arena or Wheat or things like that. I would have just been, you know, it would have just been the Zavvi stuff, the I wouldn't known about Best Buy Steelbooks. It would have just been what is available to me through standard means, HMV, um,
CX.
yeah, things like that. So all this stuff. So what got you into that? Where did that begin? Those editions.
I mean, to be honest, even some of those premium editions, the Film Arenas, I pretty much knew about Film Arena from the very start, when the very early editions that they produced.
But how?
I think I'd watched some collectors on YouTube.
Okay, yeah.
Because for some time, before I even started the channel, I'd watched YouTube, the Blue Tube community for many years before I actually took the plunge of starting the channel. I mean, I can remember watching Dan's Movie Cave way back when he was Autumn Productions, back in the sort of early 2009-10 time, I think it was. And over time, there's been a lot of different people come and go in the community. So I've watched for a long time before I sort of, created a channel. So, and I never really used to comment much either. I was just a watcher. But yeah, I saw collectors collecting these Film Arenas very much before premium editions, because now in the last couple of years that's ramped up incredibly, these premium editions.
Yeah, that's down. The majority of that is down to COVID.
Yeah.
The break. That's what I noticed, is that the break from releases, cinema releases, etc., drove a sort of back catalogue kind of resurgence, a back catalogue, and making things look a bit more special for these companies to try and make money.
Yeah, I don't want to too much get into this, because I think this is actually quite another good podcast to talk about maybe the limited editions and premiums.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a subject in itself. So maybe let's not go down too much of this rabbit hole.
See, my collecting started before the YouTube channel. What got me into I hadn't been watching these channels as long as what you say that you have, and for me, I'd already amassed a collection of stuff, of films, of figures, all this sort of a thing. None of it came about because of watching other people or anything like that. Certainly, the step into these special editions, which we'll do a podcast about, has been brought about by seeing and learning about them from other channels and things like that. But my step into the channel was because I can thankfully say was because I had a collection, and I thought people might like to, it looks like a good thing to do, and people might like to see.
Yeah,
it came from that.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's a positive thing from my perspective on collecting, is that it was driven. My collecting was driven outside of. I'm not saying it's not been influenced by. It has, but it was there initially.
Yeah. Oh, and mine was. I mean, I collected from the VHS days, way before even YouTube was internet, even before the internet was invented. But yeah, I would definitely agree. Certainly, my premium editions that I have has been influenced by watching others on YouTube. Absolutely. It just opens up this whole world of
which is where
this company did.
Yeah, which is where my premium edition would have really began. Yeah.
Yeah.
But standard film collecting's always been there.
Yeah. Like I say, we'll do another podcast on that sort of limited editions subject. But okay, well, I think we'll leave it there. But
again, let's just put out to the people watching. Collecting or hoarding. When do you see one stepping over into the other? Do you perceive yourself as being a collector, or do you see yourself actually stepping into that hoarding? And where is that transition? Where is that transition for you? You know, and do you look at other people? Like, you know, people could look at me and my collecting habits and say it's hoarding, and I appreciate that if they did. You know, I would have no issue with them saying you look like you're a hoarder. You know, it's perception. I think some of it is perception. But where does that end for you? Where do you put that line? You know, let us know in the comments down below.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we'll you know, both of us will reply to comments. I'll get involved in the comments, and that's on Matt's channel, but I'll get involved in replying to comments as well that are left, because this is like a joint venture anyway, so that makes sense. So yeah, let us know. Cool. Also, if there's any subjects that you would like us to talk about, because we do have a list of subjects, we won't go through them now. We've got a list of stuff that we're going to be doing, but if there's any subjects specific to the sort of like the collecting, the films, all this sort of thing that you might like us to consider having a chat about, then again, let us know in the comments.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, certainly, we'll certainly have a look at discussing it.
Yeah, and obviously, right. I think we plan on having this every 2 weeks, this sort of thing almost. That's what we're going to try and aim for.
Try and aim for anyway, yeah, definitely.
Same day, same time. Yeah, on Matt's channel. Yeah.
Cool. Right. I think we'll leave it there then. Thanks ever so much for joining me today, AJ. And yeah, it's been a great discussion once again.
Yes, absolutely.
So please, you know, if you don't subscribe to AJ, go and check out his channel. He's got a wealth of content. Amazing channel.
Thank you.
No problem. And yeah, we'll see you next time on the podcast.
See you later.
Bye.